at the end of the day, a customer knows between a good product and a bad product. In an ideal world, you're having really good packaging, really strong branding, really clear messaging, really great service. But you can't have anything if you don't have a really good product to start with.
All right. Welcome to the next episode of the Beauty and the Brand podcast. Today, we're joined by Jeannie Jarnot. She's the founder and CEO of Beauty Heroes, the trailblazing clean beauty subscription box and retailer, setting the gold standard for ingredient safety and sustainability. Jeannie's mission is to deliver beauty you can trust, one hero product at a time. Welcome, Jeannie. It's so great to have you on here.
Hi, Aggie. I'm so grateful for this conversation. Very excited to talk to you and be here today.
Yeah, I'm so glad the stars aligned and we connected, and here we are. So I'm very curious, because I know you touched on this when we last spoke, but you have this really interesting journey where you started in hospitality, and then that sort of lent itself into clean beauty. What was the turning point that made you dive into the beauty industry with such a strong mission coming from hospitality?
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be surprised to learn that, certainly Beauty Heroes is a beauty company, but I didn't really start the company really understanding that I was starting a beauty company. We still consider ourselves, after 10 years, we've really, developed and been able to define who we are. And we consider ourselves a beauty, wellness, and hospitality company. So I think we really still feel like we are, we're rooted in hospitality. A lot of my team members come from the hospitality industry, and we bring that hospitality and service lens to the work that we do. I came from the spa industry, which is tangential to hospitality and wellness. And I had this idea to create a service that would introduce people like me, like you, to truly healthy brands in a focused, intentional, and educational way. I studied hospitality management in school. I lived and breathed it for my entire career. And I almost was so in that mode that I didn't even really understand what I was doing. I didn't come from retail. I didn't come from beauty, and never worked in those industries. So I just had an idea of what I wanted to do, and I didn't know all the things I didn't know. And so, yeah. So when I came in, I felt like I was creating a service. I wanted to do a service for people. I saw a need for what I wanted to create. I didn't even understand, I just started talking about these brands. I wanted to create a connection, and I didn't even know the term content marketing, right? So there were just so many things that, as I got into this, and some of the professionals that I've worked with along the way, I've learned so much, and really, stepped out of the hospitality industry, but very much have circled back and embraced the fact that Beauty Heroes is really, and we have a hospitality approach. Obviously, we're not in the hospitality industry, but we bring that approach to the work that we do. So, first of all, the Beauty Heroes Discovery, we do consider it a service. So it's, you're buying a product, but the curation and the journey that we want you to go down is an experience. So we're creating an experience, which is what I always thought hospitality was. For me, the reason I wanted to get into hospitality was because I liked creating memorable moments. I grew up in Hawaii. My playground was the hotels of Waikiki, and my mother really embraced, she loved fine dining. And so she would take me to really nice restaurants when I was very young. And restaurants create this memorable experience. You don't forget the meal that you had at this restaurant for this occasion and what you ate and all of that. And so that was something that I really liked. And so the hospitality industry, that's what I wanted to create. And that's why I went into that field ultimately. So I feel like yeah. So I feel like we're creating an experience through the service. Obviously, we manage all of our customer service and sort of all the touch points of the company in-house so that we can have that control. So we're always kind of thinking about the experience that we're creating. But it came into a whole new focus when we opened a store. Then that's when like the hospitality background really started to become super relevant, and we were really pulling elements that you can't ignore them. When you're in hospitality and you've worked for companies where they have really strong standards, like in the 90s, the early 2000s, like everything there's just a way of doing everything. It's very buttoned up, uh, and you're trained to have these standards and to like do things a certain way. It's like it's a great industry to learn how to be consistent. You have to be consistent with everything that you do, and it's a good training ground. But we brought elements to that to the store, and it infuses everything that we do.
I want to know more about that. But you said the word consistency. And, given the business has been around for as long as it has been, clearly you're doing something well, and you've continued to evolve as well. And you've gone through COVID and, all the hiccups we've had in the world over the last few years. Would you say that consistency is a natural trait for you, or would you say it's something that you had to learn?
I don't know. There's something about my constitution where, I knew that one thing we needed to do was to be consistent. You lose people, you lose me, if there's sort of an inconsistency. Maybe not completely. I'm certainly, will have grace for a company or for situations, but consistency is so important. And when you lose consistency, you will lose your customers. So, for example, we have delivered 120 like monthly discoveries since we launched the company. I mean, I think that's the thing, right, about hospitality. A hotel, from the day that it opens, it's never closed. Okay. And I think one thing about, when I was starting the company, I only envisioned it being a digital company. And I thought, okay, I can handle that because it's actually never open, right? Because you're never opening your doors. And for me, I was thinking from the hospitality industry, I was like, that's going to be so refreshing to not have to like show up 365 days a year. I worked every holiday, every weekend for the duration of my career. Like really, it's hardcore. Um, and so I thought, you're never open. You can really just do what you want when you want. And that's not actually true. Digital, you're open 365 days a year, just like a hotel. Like unless you take your website down, it's open for business. You need to service it. You need to be consistent. And the everything needs to work. Things need to consistently be in stock. Customer service needs to be consistently responded to. So, but I think the biggest thing, right, and I will say this has been very hard, is every month on the first of the month, we need to deliver a new discovery. And we need to start a fresh experience. And not only does the unfolding and the experience need to have a certain level of consistency to it, but the quality of what's in that discovery needs to be consistent. And, so it is very challenging. But for me, I can't, I think, I'll go to the ends of the earth to deliver that consistency. Of course, things happened. We had only one time in the last 10 plus years where we didn't deliver on the first of the month. And that was during COVID. And it was a brand that couldn't get their pumps for their body wash that we were delivering. And we did, so we delivered everything else consistently. But the product ended up shipping mid-month. And that was actually, I think that's pretty good considering what we were going through at COVID. So, and we didn't lose people on that, but the messaging had to be really intentional. And we got the founders on, and, everything was wonderful. But consistency, it is really important in terms, for in service and in quality of product. It's both.
I love this. I love this. And I love what you said. And I wrote it down. When you lose consistency, you will lose your customers. And I think not knowing the hotels or the locations that you worked at, it's obvious that you were trained to the highest sort of level of excellence, like whether it be a 5-star establishment. Because it lends itself to the experiences that you're giving your customers day in and day out, and of course on a monthly basis. When you say you're bringing that now to your physical retail location, which I know in speaking to you has been doing really well, what does that look like? Paint us the picture for those who may not even know that Beauty Heroes is a physical retail location.
Yeah. So, we opened the store because people were really asking for it, and it was not on my roadmap. I mean, people were asking me for a couple years before we opened, when are you going to open a Beauty Heroes store? And I said, never. And, things kept chipping away. And then we actually stumbled on a space. And what happened was just kind of everything said yes. It felt really right to do. And so we signed the lease for this space, but we didn't know what we wanted, So we signed the lease for the space, and we said, what are we going to do? And so we actually went through a 4-month exercise. We didn't occupy the space for over a year. We occupied it, but we occupied it for our online operation. We didn't open the store for over a year because we took 3 or 4 months to come up with a concept for the store that would create these experiences. The space for the store, because we're not in a large city where real estate is at a premium, where this space, you have more space. And we thought, okay, we have this beautiful space. How can we create experiences? And I very much wanted to create a place where people could come and spend time. I wanted to bring that service of discovery alive in the store. And so we kind of built all these different ways to do that. One of the things in the store, if you come in, hopefully, if anybody watching this podcast, when you go into our store, they will greet. It's in, we're in Northern California. We're in Marin County, and we're in a city called Novato, which is the last city before you get to Sonoma and Napa. And it's where I live, and where our store is in downtown Novato. So if you walk into the store, there's a standard, right? Our team is supposed to greet you and offer you a water with Beauty Chef hydration and tell you what that is. What is Beauty Chef hydration? It's an electrolyte booster with some probiotics from the Beauty Chef in Australia, and it tastes really good, and we add a little bit to your water. And what we're signaling through that one little thing is that, first of all, the first message that we're trying to share is that this isn't just a retail store. We're not, there's something else here. Like, even if you don't know what it is. Second, we're here to serve you. That's the second thing we're here to communicate with you by pouring somebody, something. We have like a pitcher, and it's got a standard, right? Because I come from hospitality where everything has a standard. It's got mint and sliced blood orange in the water every day. We make it every day fresh, and it's always the same, and there's a standard to it. So when you come in, the act of just serving you a glass of water with something tells you that we're more than just a beauty store, right? Because we've got something wellness infused into it, and we're here to serve you. And then the other thing that it's communicating is that we want you to spend some time here. We don't want you to just walk out. So that's an example of how the hospital, there's other examples, right, that we can share and we can go into, but that's an example of how that hospitality experience, you're communicating with everything that you do. That one thing that should happen to every client, and if you're watching this and you go into the Beauty Heroes and it doesn't happen, I want to know, because that's the standard and that's supposed to happen every single time.
I love that. It's making me want to go.
It's not easy to execute, right? And what happens if you're helping somebody, there's 4 people in the store and somebody comes in? We have to work through all of that. So
What does happen?
What does happen? So what happens is they end up, working through all the people that they have in the store, and then they're supposed to get there. So it might not happen immediately. If you're the only person in the store, it happens immediately. And but our team knows that we need to get to that, right? There's a way to sort of make sure everybody's okay before you can get to that, because that's a dance as well. And that comes from hiring. Who we hire in the store needs to kind of be of a certain hospitality background is helpful. Certainly if they've, even if they've been a waitress or they worked a front desk or a hotel or, anything, that's all really good training. It's not so much, I would say I value hospitality experience more than I value retail experience or setting, right? It's a little
Absolutely,
bit
because one
more,
is transactional, one is service.
yeah. So there's those kinds of things, but that one little thing, that's probably a good example of how we, how hospitality is relevant. We have these different, we have a flight bar that comes from the hospitality space, from kind of having a wine bar or a flight. We have flights of beauty. That was a concept that literally, that was just lifted from that and applied to beauty. We have a cleansing bar where you can try, we have all of our cleansers on a cleansing bar, and we have a protocol on how we walk you through it and how we add an element of service to that experience. And we train on that. So there's a lot more to it, but that I could go on for a long time, obviously. That, but yeah,
Definitely sounds like it's absolutely worth a visit. And for those of you, all of you who are in California and or visiting Northern California, definitely go and check out the store. Um, Tell me more about, you said it took you 4 months with the team of deciding, what the concept would be, what the theme would be, how it would be created into an experience, the store. Do you tend to use your creativity and intuition more in making decisions, or do you use hard numbers more? Obviously, in any business, you need to look at numbers, but is there one that you lean towards more?
I think well, I will say in our business, creativity fuels the numbers. The more creative we are with what we deliver, and the integrity in that and the intentionality in that, the numbers are kind of going to do what they're going to do, right? Either people are going to love what you've created or they're not. So obviously we're creating. So I definitely say we lead through intuition and creativity more. I think that the idea, right, for example, if you're creating this space that is not infused with memorable moments and service, it's a place people want to come back to more frequently, and it's a place that they want to spend more time in. And that leads to more sales authentically, because there's, just because obviously for the obvious reasons. So I would definitely think that, the numbers are a bit out of our control, except, when you get into digital marketing, right? Which is my least favorite topic ever. And then you're really like trying, then it's like not so. I mean, I guess there is a whole world of creativity on there too, like testing digital creatives and, being creative with content. And that's really, really hard for me. Um, so, so I would say everything leads with creativity. And then obviously, then you come back with like, okay, is this going to deliver? Does it make sense to invest in this creative idea that you have? Is the ROI going to be there? Certainly off those questions, but best thing is to not limit your creativity, and to a certain degree, the numbers are going to do what they're going to do. They're really a little bit out of your control.
Okay, so moving on to, how you choose products, how you choose brands that you work with. Beauty Heroes has a very specific clean beauty standard. And I want you to share a little bit more how you came to that standard and what is it?
Sure. Yeah, we just re-articulated what our standard is on our site. So if you go to our homepage, there's a tab at the right that's, on the main nav that says our standard. So when I launched Beauty Heroes, I was working on it in 2013, 2014. Clean beauty wasn't a term. And the only company that had a standard or an ingredient list that I knew of was Beauty Counter. They had a little card that had all the ingredients that they didn't use, and I still have it somewhere. And there was no, clean beauty wasn't the term, so it was green beauty that we were talking about at that time. And for me, I had, so first of all, I had spent my whole life navigating ingredients, my whole career navigating ingredients since I got into the spa industry. So it started with a little seed that was planted back in like 1997. I started as the assistant spa director at my first spa job, and there was no email, there was no internet, and it must have been a newspaper article that said that there are harmful ingredients in our skincare products. Probably it was parabens. I don't really remember, but it's probably about parabens. And I just thought, well, if those ingredients are bad for people, we would never use them, right? And I was working with an amazing team at an amazing spa, and they were really kind of, we were really aligned on that. But it was that little spark that really was the thread throughout my career. As my career grew to where I was actually choosing brands to go into my spa, I would ask questions about ingredients. I want to make sure that everything that we're putting on our clients is healthy. And that's all I thought about for years and years and years. And I would ask questions. Most of the time, they didn't know the answer to my questions, and that was interesting. Then the internet got more and more, and you could start to search things, and then more articles, and everything just. But I used to have a stack of textbooks on my desk. I used to have a stack of textbooks on my desk with all this information. And I had, I started making flashcards because I couldn't remember the names of the ingredients. It was all very organic. And, just me saying, okay, well, I won't feel comfortable pushing all these products into our customers' skin through a goat milk wrap or, seaweed wrap or, a 90-minute facial, if it had harmful ingredients in it. So that's where it all started. And that led me down the road to discovering, cleaner and cleaner brands. And then it really led me to get to brands that were really much closer to their ingredients, where you asked a question and they had the answer.
Which one that stands out to you at the top of your head that was one of those earlier brands that could do that?
Yeah, so pretty much anybody who asks me that question gets the same answer because it's always been that one brand. But I started working with a brand called Red Flower. The founder was
I remember Red Flower, yes.
Yael Alcalay. And when you asked a question to Yael, she had all the answers. And not only the answers of where's the ingredient, but also why she chose that ingredient and who sourced it or where it's sourced from. And, and it was really like, wow, that's so nice to be able to ask a question and they have the answer and more. And that's kind of, so those are the kinds of brands we really work with today, where you ask that question and, they really do know, those answers. But it really started with me wanting to not put things on people that were harmful to people. And so when I started Beauty Heroes, I did this bit, spent a long time researching what that list would be, kind of like my beauty counter list. And I launched with that. We had the villain ingredients, and then we had the superpowers, and then we had this pocket guide that we created. That was a content piece that we would add into every order, and we had it free for download on our website. And it was like, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to connect people to these brands that were making products that were good for people. There was a big disruption to that a couple years into Beauty Heroes when I learned that there are ingredients in our products that are harmful to the environment. And being somebody who had been environmentally conscious through, like a normal person, I would say normal for California, we were really like environmentally conscious. I grew up in Hawaii. I was like really, into nature, and it was a big aha moment for me. And I felt really stupid because I had never thought of it. I had never really thought about, I guess I figured if they were safe for people, they were safe to go down the drain. I hadn't really connected all those dots. And that really was a huge moment. I'll never forget it, when I was like, oh my goodness, we really need to think about that. And so that has informed what is now our standard. And it's just kind of like, if you know that an ingredient is potentially harmful to people, or potentially harmful to the planet, I don't necessarily I definitely want some science, but it's like I definitely more on the precautionary approach to it. It's like, yeah, and I talk to chemists, cosmetic chemists. I have a few that I consult, and I'm like, is this bad for the environment? If it gets introduced to the environment, they're like, yeah, it's bad. I'm like, okay, we can't allow it at Beauty Heroes. And that is what informs the standard.
Are there any ingredients that you can mention, like one or two ingredients off the top of your head that are commonly used but are quite harmful, actually, that people may not realize?
Yeah, I think there's like all these categories of silicones, and there's all these, there's some debate on there's different rates that silicones biodegrade. And so just to give you like a really clear answer to that, for me, it's like, okay, well, this, biodegrades. Silicones there's all this green technology coming out about ingredients, and so there's all these silicone replacements, all that. But traditional silicones don't really biodegrade. They degrade over time, but they don't biodegrade, and some degrade in different ways, and all of that. And I'm just like, okay, I don't totally care about all the details. Like once it goes into the environment, if it's going to be bad for our environment, the rate at which it degrades doesn't really influence me. Let's just not use it. Um, it has no beneficial value to your skin. It's really just a feeling and of how the product feels on your skin or performs in the formula. So it's just that's a really clear example. Acrylates copolymer is really common, and there's different types of acrylates, and some are biodegradable, but most aren't. They're usually a liquid plastic. There's different, so there's a lot of ingredients coming on the market. There's a lot of innovation in ingredients. So we have to continually do a lot of research. But those are kind of the big ones where I was like, they're in a lot of formulas. They're in a lot products, particularly. I mean, acrylates seem to be in everything, but silicones are really in makeup, and so to find silicone free makeup is challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it is. I remember talking to a founder who was trying to create a silicone free, who's working on a silicone free, makeup line. And even just finding the manufacturing partners that can agree to doing a project like that is also tricky. So I hear you on that. I want to touch on the hero product, or like the concept of hero, because I think the sustainability conversation kind of lends itself to this concept that you said, you want to choose these hero products that are full size products rather than just having like throwaway little samples that people throw away. Can you talk me through the philosophy behind that?
Absolutely. I think, I was somewhere in my career, I was introduced to the concept of, brands having a hero product. I had never heard that term. It came to me and I was like, okay, great. It sort of latched on to me. And then I'd be talking about a brand to a client at my, in my spa and try to, sell them. And I would say, this is really their hero product. And so I would use that terminology, and I ended up, for some reason, it resonated with me just organically as, professionally. And I had this idea. I thought, really the brands that I was working with, I thought more people really need to know about them. And if they could discover a brand the way that I did through their hero product, a full size product, they would fall in love with it the way that I did. And they would want to know more about this brand, and they would start to try different products from this brand. And I thought, somebody should create a service, right, that does this, that delivers a hero product with education about the brand and gets them to try it, and then opens their eyes to these brands. And that I had in my head for a long time. Somebody should do this. Somebody should create a service like this. This would be a really great service. And then, you know, I got to a point where, the light bulb went on, and I was like, oh, maybe I should do it. And kind of similarly to the beauty counter reference at the time, Birchbox was the only beauty subscription, and I didn't even have the terminology for a beauty subscription box. The concept never dawned on me. To me, this was always like a service that you should do, and just to show you how I wasn't really, I really didn't come from this industry. But there was when I learned about Birchbox, and there was a huge article about the founders in like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, and I was like, wow, and they're doing, sample sizes. And I was like, I would never do that because I started the company, when I was 38. And when you get into like, also, I think I was a spa director. It's like if you give me samples, like, I'm not interested. It's just, I was kind of a snob about it, like, don't send me samples. I won't look at your brand. That's just so cheap. It's just so icky. I don't like it. I just wasn't into samples. I was used to kind of being presented as a spa director. I was used to being educated. I was used to like people really wanting to impress me as a buyer and as a for our spas. So I just thought people, and women my age, I felt like didn't like samples, and I just wanted to do something. So I thought it was cool that Birchbox was doing what they were doing because it was different than what I was even thinking of doing. So I thought it was great. And I was like, maybe a younger client, that really speaks to them, where they want to try a lot of different little things and that they're kind of into that. I could see. But I said, I just kind of thought in my head that, this is really the grown woman's subscription box, is the way that I thought about it in my head, as well as it being more like a service.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And fun fact, I actually was one of the founders of Birchbox intern like eons ago, eons ago. And I remember like when I didn't know, she'd gone on to start Birchbox, and all of a sudden, like you, I see everything about Birchbox, and then they also ended up pitching us. So it was like full circle moment, where I'm like, oh, I used to work for you, and now like you're pitching. It was just funny. Such a small world, but so obviously there's this level of selectivity, and so how do you select and choose these hero products that go into the boxes? Because from a business perspective, and you slightly touched on this, but you mentioned that, we have to complete and fulfill a box, every month. We get to create this experience every single month, right? So in some regard, you're needing to make sure that you have product every single month for the whole year. But on the other hand, right, you're also selecting the right products that you want to introduce to your audience. So talk me through that process.
Yeah. So there's only 12 hero products a year because there's one per month per brand. And, I'm really looking for, we look for products that will serve the majority of our demographic. That's something, when we're talking about new launches, we're thinking about something that we think is going to become a top seller for the brand. That is a real standout product. That's the one that kind of becomes the hero product. So in a Beauty Heroes Discovery, typically there's 2 products. Sometimes there's 3. This February, there will be 4 because it is a brand, we need to get the box up to a certain value, and like hair care and body care are sometimes harder to get to that value. And so we have a bigger discovery. But typically the typical models, there's 2 products, and there's a hero product and what we call a sidekick. And typically, not always, the 2 products are related. It's really that concept of like, I'm going to deliver something that I think you're really going to love and resonate with. And then we'll deliver a second product that kind of helps reinforce the incredible quality of this brand and kind of what this brand will deliver. And we'll give you a great introduction to this brand. And then you might want to, if you love it, you might want to discover more from that brand. So, so the hero product's subjective. It is something that, it's a decision that I make with our team and our CMO. And we sort of say, this is the hero. But we also play with it a little bit, like the sidekick might become your hero product. And that happens all the time, where in a discovery, you might get something and it wasn't that, but you loved it. And it's now your hero. It's very personal, what resonates and what works for each person. So the discovery is really an opportunity to tell story, to do storytelling and let it land with the client on what their hero products are. We denote them what my hero products are. They're the products that, generally I really want to have in my routine. Obviously, we're 10 years in now, and not every single product in my routine all the time, but it certainly could be and would be and might be. But it's, yeah, I mean, we take it pretty seriously. And
How do you balance let's say, I'm going to give you a scenario. Let's say a brand comes to you that if you put this brand and this product into your boxes, it would attract a ton of new customers because it is a iconic brand, they're blowing up, whatever. But they go against your mission and your vision. Have you ever struggled with that choice, or is it just like a flat no?
Well, yeah, no, it's a flat no for sure. I would say, the ingredients. So back to the ingredient standard's black and white. Like either we allow this ingredient or we don't. But there's a lot of other things that are now infused into our standard. And for example, things like here's one that's more nuanced. Are they using excessive packaging? Are they thoughtful about packaging? Packaging is not so black and white. It might be in the future. Compliance is coming, packaging innovation is coming. But for right now, I don't think we can take a hard line and say every product needs to be 100% recyclable or made with 100% PCR material. That's impossible. It just doesn't exist. And even like lower thresholds of those kinds of things would be really hard to achieve consistently. I don't think it's really fair to the brands. Packaging is just not where, it's probably going to be in the next 3, 4, 5 years. So we have more of a I would say subjective approach to packaging where it's like, can you tell that this brand's really trying to be thoughtful around their packaging? And that's how we think about it. How does this feel? I mean, the good thing is that the ingredient standard, because it's so strict, pretty much rules out most brands that don't align with us on a bigger level. Because it's such a stringent ingredient standard, if you kind of meet the ingredient standard there, you're kind of thinking the way we are. But yeah, there's not a scenario where we would ever feature, we love the idea of introducing brands that people maybe have heard of before. But the real fun is when we hear from our customers that they discovered a brand that they never would have heard of, is kind of obscure. Like this month, we're working with a brand called Inlight Beauty. It's a tiny little brand out of the UK, made by hand. It's 100%. The whole brand is 100% certified organic. And nobody would have known, it's not such a widely known brand. Hopefully, obviously we want their awareness to grow. But for a lot of people, they haven't heard of that brand. And so, and then they love it. They're like, oh my gosh, I love this brand. I never would have known about it. And that's super rewarding and fun. And that's what beauty is all about in a way, like the discovery, the joy of discovery and surprise and delight. But yeah, that's harder because people aren't. So I think the bigger mission for Beauty Heroes is, and the conversation is, how do we earn people's trust so that whatever we put in the box, whatever we put in the discovery, they are going to join because it's Beauty Heroes, not because of that brand. And it is a brand that they've heard of, and they know they're going to know that we have chosen like the products that really are our favorites to put in the discovery. So, I feel like now that we've been around for 10 years, maybe we, hopefully we've really earned that. But that is a challenge. If we want to talk about challenges, that's the big one.
Yeah, that's going to be my next question. Like, what have been the biggest challenges you face when launching Beauty Heroes and growing Beauty Heroes, especially with the standards and the competitive marketplace? And there's also a lot of subscription boxes that ended up closing.
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge for us is that we're never sending, we send you a Beauty Heroes discovery. We're never sending anything that really has Beauty Heroes on it. Yeah, we're the curator, but it's always someone else's products. So, that's a challenge when you're trying to work with influencers and press. The photograph, you could search Beauty Heroes in the media. The photograph is always like somebody else's product. So it's like, okay, like how do you connect it back to Beauty Heroes? And that visually, that's been the biggest challenge. That's one challenge. The second challenge is really, how do you earn people's trust? And that is through consistency, and that is really hard, and it takes time, and to get people to, there was, what's cool is that when we first started, the big thing was like, oh, but it's full size products. What if I don't like the products? We don't we don't hear that anymore, um, because we put people know that we put really good products in their box. One thing I want to say is, like, for every discovery, the products are made for us. We're never taking excess inventory off a brand, which I think is a model, again, that I didn't know that some subscription boxes do, where they kind of buy this overstock inventory, and now there's this whole emergence of websites that, and companies that are taking, going to beauty companies, taking their excess inventory and marketing it to subscription boxes. We only learned about it because it was marketed to us. That's not something that we would ever participate in, but it exists. And I think that's actually an emerging threat, because there are subscription boxes that are now putting really, full size products, excess inventory, close to expired inventory into boxes, and marketing it as if it is a Beauty Heroes like service. So that's I would say, an emerging challenge for us. But what I think is that if we're consistent, our core customers know the difference.
So tell me a little bit more about, how do you continue to educate your customers on products and evolution and trends and innovations? Because one thing you noted when we spoke last is that your website, for example, comparatively to other websites, has a lot of copy on it, which would typically be against best practices, so to say. But in your case, you said that you've shared that it really resonates and works for your audience. Is that part of that, elevating that experience is really educating the consumer?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we just, did a presentation with an agency yesterday, and we were talking about the amount of copy on our website, and they have some suggestions, and, that those best practices need to be balanced with the values. I think the way I always think about what we're doing is, we want to talk to our community as if they are really smart people. That's actually like a personal tenet of mine, is that I want to be spoken to by companies that I love, as if I am, a smart person and intelligent person. And I think the brand, like I just got a great email. I'm on Patagonia's. Um, they're definitely Patagonia is like such the gold standard of content marketing, right? Okay, but it still surprises me by how well they do it. How when I receive their emails, even if I don't read them, I respect that they're talking to me like I'm an intelligent, thinking human. And so I think we're trying to bring that to beauty. At the flip side, we talk about like, oh, it's hard because, we know that open rates and, people don't have time to read a lot of things. So that's a balance of like wanting to kind of get things to them in a way that you are also not making it hard for them to know what you're talking about. And so sometimes we do shorter copy just out of respect for our customers and just to not make them read too much. So it is like a constant balance. And I would say, yeah. So I don't, I think we're figuring it out and constantly evolving.
Yeah, I struggle with that myself. And, just the advice is always like short and snappy and quick and unwordy. And every time I put so I had this recommendation about this app called Hemingway, which essentially you can put your copy in there and it'll grade it on what reading level it is. And mine always comes back as like a master's PhD level copy. And you're supposed to write for, for everyone to be able to understand and read things and absorb things quickly. You're supposed to write a third grade level. And what Hemingway does is it kind of dumbs things down, to a third grade level where it's just more readable and easier to read. But I also wonder, like, I don't know, I always struggle with this because I feel like, to your point, I also want to be spoken to like I'm being spoken to as an intelligent person, and I want to read things that might be a little bit more, have more depth and not be flat and just surface level. And even with the podcast, I remember people saying like, oh, it should be like 15, 20 minutes. Like that's what's hot. That's what's working. And I'm like, but I want to go deeper in the podcast. I don't want to just do something for 15, 20 minutes and I'm wrapping up. I'm just getting started at 20 minutes. Like, so I hear you. I feel you on it.
Well, I think there's different things, right? Like the New York Times, they do the daily, which is 20 to 20, 20 minutes or so. And that is, they are able to kind of give you like that services that client, that listener. But then there's conversations like I'm listening to a podcast that's over 2 hours long with, the guest is Mel Robbins, a friend of mine started, and it's like a conversation with her. And it's like, you're going deep into that. So it just really depends. I mean, I love you were so thorough with your questions for this conversation. And I saw that come through and I like Aggie. She's my kind of girl, where you're thinking about things, and I think, yeah, I think, know your audience. It's okay to do some things short and some things long. I think that's how we feel. So it's fine to do some things short and some things long.
Exactly. We're testing it out too, even with emails, like if it was me all day, every day, they would be here we go. But I tell stories in there. And I think what I hear, people like those stories. So I do like telling them, but I've been advised that like, hey, why don't we try like sprinkling in some shorter things in here and there. I want to ask you, you have over the last, it's been what, 11 years now, right? 11 or 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little over 10 years since we launched, but 11 years that I've been working on the company. Yeah.
So you have seen, had a lot of experience with different beauty brands. You've seen brands come and go over the last decade. In your opinion, the brands that have thrived over the years, what did they do right?
Yeah, that's a great question. They made really good quality products. You know, I've seen you to be the best, to be a great brand, you kind of need to have everything, but you can't have anything if you don't have a really good quality product. And so you can have a really good product with really bad packaging. That works sometimes. Like that can be okay. You can have um, a successful brand with really good product and not great social media and all of that. I think, at the end of the day, a customer knows between a good product and a bad product. The rest is all really, in an ideal world, you're having really good packaging, really strong branding, really clear messaging, really great service. But you can't have anything if you don't have a really good product to start with. And um, so I would say the brands that really survive are brands who are making fundamentally really, really, really good products that people fall in love with.
But what if they think the product is really, really great and it's not as great as they think it is? The market will correct for itself. Mm-hmm.
For sure. Nobody launches a brand, I think, at least an independent, not thinking that their product is great. And yeah, so I would say, but that's the thread, that's the consistent thing, if I could say, about all of the brands that succeed. There isn't a brand that has really great marketing and packaging and celebrity endorsements that's making a crappy product that is successful. I just don't think that will, they have to make something that's really, really, really good quality that people will love putting on their skin, putting on their body, and that really performs well for them. In our space, we're such a niche because we don't allow all these other ingredients. So I would say, yeah, I think our customers are really emotionally tied to our products. Because yeah, they're really good products, and if they go out of stock or they can't get it anymore, they're really devastated.
That's a good thing. Good problem to have. And then concurrently, for brands that may have, chosen to close their doors, what do you feel, where did things go wrong potentially?
That is where, there's a lot of different variables. There's some really nice brands that have closed their doors this year that Beauty Heroes carried. Beneath Your Mask is taking a pause. No, she says she will reopen at some point, but she's taken a pause on the brand, and she made a really good product. Um, Ingredients also closed their doors this year, and they made a really good product. So there's, sometimes those don't, you need to have. I don't know actually why they, at the end of the day, I don't really know the inner workings of those companies. Um, but there was another one that closed the year before this year. Lady Sweet was a wonderful women's intimate care brand, and just couldn't raise um, couldn't raise enough money to keep going, and they ended up closing their doors. So I think there's a lot of different factors. Uh, but I've been saying for a long time that there are too many brands. Companies, are launching too many brands, and it's not sustainable. So I think a lot more are going to continue to close their doors just because there's too many. Um, for us to, and too many launching all the time, and it's just going to keep going. And, so yeah,
And are there, speaking of, emerging brands, are there any sort of emerging trends or innovations in clean beauty space that you're super excited about?
No. The answer to that question is no. I would love to see, I definitely would love to see more truly clean makeup. I'd love to see some trends in that. I just think but I am thinking about all the launches that we have for next year, right? There's a lot of technical hair care coming down. There's a lot of really innovative lip products. I mean, one that just comes to mind that I was looking at yesterday was RMS's Chameleon. We've done a soft launch where it's a formula that changes color based on the pH levels of your lips. And so that's kind of like a fun lip product.
Oh, that's going to do so well.
So, and it's meets our ingredient standard. So that's kind of fun. There, like I said, there's a lot of technical hair care, scalp care that's coming out. That is, I think there's definitely going to be an oversaturation in that category. I think there's, if there isn't too much already, I think there will be. But we're seeing a lot of launches in that area. And yeah, but there's not enough trending in truly clean makeup. And so people always ask me, where is the white space? And
I was going to ask you.
I always answer, if I had the money and somebody said, what do you want to do right now? What would you do with it that's like the best, I would create a line that is meeting the Beauty Heroes ingredient standard, that is targeted towards 16 to 26-year-olds, and is makeup that is fun and really embracing, kind of embracing sustainable packaging and also delivering that experience. I don't think that's really there enough. I'd like to see more trends in that. And I'd like to see more fun in the clean. It's hard for us because one of your questions was, the clean beauty space is so competitive and so vast. And for us, it doesn't feel that way, because the definition of clean is where ours is. It's actually super limiting. And that's actually, in terms of challenges, that's a big challenge for us.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And do you ever feel like as new information comes out, new studies come out, new clinical studies, do you ever adjust your standard?
We constantly adjust the standard. Unfortunately, it's like, tightening it, not loosening it. I talk to a cosmetic chemist, I always start with I would love to allow this ingredient, because for every ingredient that I can't allow, that's more limiting for us.
Right.
Okay, is this potentially harmful for people? Is it potentially harmful for the environment? And if it is, tell me the truth, and we will need to restrict it, because that's really just kind of the point of being here. So, obviously it's kind of exciting to have some ingredient innovation place. I think there's a lot of, like I said, silicone replacements that are coming on board. But yeah, so I just think that.
How do you then balance out the flip side of that? The flip argument of this is that, when you're using all natural or, ingredients, they're not replenishable, right? There's a sustainability factor at play here. How do you kind of coincide those two ideas around we have the standards and these are the ingredients we allow, and also a lot of those ingredients are not as easily or quickly replenishable as they are utilized?
Well, I definitely am a big believer in biotech, and there are so many upcycled ingredients But, I mean, like there's a great company that is upcycling bio waste into ingredients. There's just a lot that you can do. And then there's a lot of biotech. So I'm so in favor of that. And so I think um, on the other side, there is sort of, we are using way more products than we need to use as humans. So, I think if there was some scarcity, then, that's a losing argument or that's a losing concept. So I've sort of abandoned really talking about that realistically. It's a value that I can hold to that we can hold personally. And, the way that I talk about product, I try to bring a consciousness to that in terms of consumption. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times people have come into our store and they're asking me how to use their products. And I'll tell them, okay, make a list of everything that you have. I mean, these clients will tell you this. They laugh at me all the time. You're not allowed to buy anything. Cancel your Beauty Hero subscription. Yes, we need to work through this for now, and then we can kind of come back. So there does need to be a consciousness in terms of like how much we use. But like I said, I think that's a losing argument. And, you can only be responsible for yourself. But yeah, I mean, if there, what I will say that we are trying to do at Beauty Heroes is give people a really wonderful option for those who don't want to use synthetic fragrance, who don't want to use silicones, and an experience where you're not going to miss any of that. You can come in and get a fabulous mascara and fun, lip colors and wonderful hair care and styling products and all of the above. And we are missing that one category where, we have a little bit, but it's not that exciting. So I would love to see a trend of that. That's the white space. People keep asking me what's the white space. It's everybody's favorite question for me. And I'm like, there's the white space. I'm not going to be creating a teen or young adult makeup line that meets our standard, but I want somebody to do that.
You heard it here first, guys. Go, and this is what we need right now in the makeup category. Okay, so if you could give one piece of advice to someone wanting to start a beauty brand, what would that be?
I would say this is where, my advice would probably come across a little bit as unconventional, is really question that. Really think hard about that. I tell this story about when I decided to start Beauty Heroes. I called this woman that I really respected, who was an entrepreneur, and I told her about Beauty Heroes. And I was really excited. I was 38 years old. I was really an adult, like a real mature adult. I was pushing 40. And I thought that I had finally earned the place to say that I got the courage to do it and the wherewithal to really say that I could do this. And I called her up and I think I asked her some advice or pitched her on my idea to see what she thought. And she said, "Are you sure you want to do it?" And I said, "Yes, I'm sure. I've done so much personal work to get to this place. And I'm sure, I finally am sure. I've been dancing around this for the last 6 or 7 years. I finally feel sure. Do I not sound sure?" Like, "No, you sound sure." But she's explained to me, she's like, "It's hard. It's real hard." As somebody and she's like, "I don't know if I recommend it, girl." And I would say that is my advice is like really question it. And I'm not saying don't do it. I will just say, really, really question it and really be clear about it. and be willing to, I think I did go into starting my company with one of the things that I had really done the work on was being willing to fail. I kind of said, this was so important to me that I gave it a shot. I needed to trust myself to go forward with it, but I also needed to be comfortable with failing at it. And I will say that's been hard to hold on to. Like, I don't want to fail. I do not want to fail. And yet, I think at the same time, I still always think about that as like, but if you failed, you would be okay. Everything would be okay if this, so I would say question it. Start it while you're doing your full time job. I did that. I kind of maybe wish I did that a little bit longer, although the environment that I was working in when I started the company was really not really great for me. So that's, I think, why a lot of us start companies is because we've experienced toxic work environments and we kind of want to start something on our own. And that was actually a big inspiration for me. I'd had a series of really hard work environments where I thought, gosh, it's just so not good for me. And thinking that, that I could create something that was healthier and
Better, right? I do. I mean, to kind of go on for what you just shared, I do think like having have started and grown multiple businesses at this point, I do find that every business is hard. Like no matter what category you're in, whether it's beauty or tech or SaaS product or I don't know, plumbing company, like I do believe that anything that you're doing with intention and purpose that you actually truly care about and you care about the result that it's giving to the end user is hard. Like, you know what I mean? I just think it will be hard. But is that harder than being in a job that may be taking you out of what you're meant to do in this world? Like the things to allow purpose to come into fulfillment, it will require hard, in my opinion.
yeah, I think there's so many different ways to fulfill your purpose. And I think it's okay to have an idea and not move forward with it and find purpose elsewhere. And it is also, I just say question it deeply and know that you know, that, that entrepreneur that I called, her name's Lisa. Um, her voice, man, I can still hear it. And I could hear the trepidation in her voice for me. Like, are you sure? Similarly, my dad, when I told him I was doing this, he said, Jeannie, are you sure? And he was an entrepreneur his whole life and he was scared. He was scared for me. And I feel that too. I feel that for others. This is hard and it'll take you on a journey. And I will just say it's just so okay. I try to bring some equanimity to all the paths. Like down one path is not better than down another path.
Oh, 100%. Everything's a learning. And I'm such a, my parents are also business owners in their own right. And, they always said like, yes, it's hard to be your own boss, but it's so rewarding. They always gave me a very positive sort of feedback about it. And I will say, I think one of my top values is actually adventure. And so the concept of like a journey, like so business being a journey comes very naturally to me. And people say you have to be able to enjoy the journey. You can't be driving constantly towards, the destination, because you'll never be happy. And for me, that's come a lot easier. But I do find that for some founders, that's a lot harder, because they are driven by that. What is that destination? How quickly can I get there? And they can't just enjoy the process of growth, the process of learning, the process of evolving into this next level of human that you will become as you go through each. I see it as a game, like each stage of the business, that is so rewarding, is so fulfilling. But I don't know, maybe I see it in a funky way.
Yeah, no, I think I think you absolutely have to enjoy the journey. I continue to work on that. I think one of the things is I had somebody write into me recently. One of our customers, she replied to to one of my emails that I send out. I send a personal email out to all of our customers once a month. And she replied to it and she said, I'm a founder too. I'm starting up a company. It's a tech company actually. And she said, I'm not able to pay myself right now.
Mm.
And so she sort of said, luckily I have a partner who's able to pay the bills and pay for the groceries. She says, but the one thing I'm not giving up is my Beauty Heroes subscription. But I think that, not paying, you could hear the sort of, I sort of, can honor the place that she's been where you're not paying yourself.
Yes. Same.
And, it's a road. That's a road. You got to have a lot of self-trust. You have to have a lot of, like I said, you have to be willing to fail. You have to, it's risk. It's a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So speaking of journey and adventuring, what's up next for Beauty Heroes? What's coming up? Let's give us a little sneak peek if there's anything.
This is an industry podcast, so we can talk about this stuff. We're doing something really boring right now that we've been working on for a really long time. And we were hoping it was going to go live before the end of the year, but it's probably just going to go live in January. But we've been working on a platform migration for the subscription. And talking about consistency, one thing I will say about subscriptions is a technical thing, is that the technology that supports subscriptions is very, it's not very good. And it's complicated to manage subscriptions, and having a good customer and digital experience is really important to us. So we're testing and custom building and refining and working on this platform migration. And what that's going to do is going to make it easier for customers. It's going to make something that historically wasn't possible to do possible, which is to be able to shop in our online store and check out for a subscription in one transaction.
It's so cool. So cool.
Sounds like so basic, like this should be able to happen. But the complexity behind it, what I will say is like one of the most unexpected things about this journey is that I've become an expert on subscription platforms.
But you never thought you'd be.
Yeah, and I think the technology people if they were listening to this, they'd roll their eyes. But I'm like, you should all hire me to consult for you to help fix the problems and navigate these issues that people are having. So anyway, that's a big thing for us, and what that allows us to do is to actually be more creative in how we talk about the subscription and creating just a more holistic experience. So that's one thing that is kind of the big lift for us. And once that's done, oh my gosh, I can't wait till we check that off the list. Internally, we're working on sort of some structural stuff as sort of we're looking at growing. We're putting together a really fun, Beauty Heroes playbook and a series of play-by-plays, which really are kind of just our version of SOPs, but really trying to come up with laying a lot of that foundational stuff to be able to, really, I think we know who we are now and who we want to attract. And so getting that all into place is something that we're really working on in Q1. We tested a limited edition winter discovery in December that it was like your limited edition. It was your winter vacation edit, and it sold out immediately. So that
oh my gosh, I can imagine.
surprising because it was a multi-brand limited edition discovery, and it was really well received. So we're looking at how we do that in a way that's really thoughtful and really curated. So we have some plans to kind of lean into that a little bit, which we're excited about. And we're doing a big offsite event that's around menopause in January. And really, we're really looking at ways that we can deepen the conversation around wellness. I think that's been a big thing for me is I didn't want to lose that wellness piece at Beauty Heroes. I didn't want to just so how we work in wellness is something that we talk about. We're also considering, we don't allow synthetic fragrance, even safe synthetics. That's something that's a really hard one for us. As well. So we're looking at curating really and kind of leaning more into fragrance. It's definitely become a big category. It's never been big at Beauty Heroes, but we're talking about leaning into that more in 2025. And then there's always a conversation about another store. So we're talking.
I love that. So much cool stuff coming up in 2025. Guys, you got to go check out Beauty Heroes. Follow Beauty Heroes. There's so much goodness coming down the pipeline in 2025. Thank you so much, Jeannie, for joining me here today, for sharing, your purpose, your why, how you got started, and really kind of opening up sort of the behind the scenes of Beauty Heroes and everything you've been building. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. Really appreciate it. And please DM me and let me know that you listened and what you thought. And I'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. All right. Bye, everyone. I'll see you all on the next episode of the Beauty and the Brand podcast. Until then.